Over the past few years, I've tried and tested so many different small rig accessories, and I feel like I'm finally at a point where I'm super happy with the rig that I've created. All of the components just work really well for my shooting style, and so I thought I'd just share it with you guys today. Now, there are a few slight modifications that I make if I'm needing to capture audio, but the baseline rig build across the board is exactly the same. So that's what I'm mainly going to be talking about today. If you're only interested in seeing the rig build out and don't really want to hear me talk about the reasoning behind what I'm using, then skip to this timestamp here. What's going on, guys? My name's Rachel and I run a video production company called Right Visuals in Melbourne, Australia. If you're new to this channel, I share everything filmmaking related, so be sure to check out my other videos if that's what you're interested in. Now, this rig that I have here is based upon the A7S III, and it also works with the FX3, and it will work with any similar DSLR or mirrorless camera setup. You just have to get the appropriate cage for your camera. All the other components, they're universal, they're not specific to Sony. So before I break down the components that I'm using, I wanted to just talk a little bit about why I use a camera rig. Now, if you're shooting handheld, the heavier your camera rig is, the smoother your footage will be. Now, there are a few other factors like how you move the camera and how you move your body, but generally speaking, if your camera has more weight to it, it's just going to be more stable, and especially if that weight is nice and evenly spread out around the rig. Like, you don't want your setup to be too top heavy, back heavy, or front heavy, because then it's going to be hard to stabilize it within your own hands. But if it's quite well balanced throughout, it is really comfortable to hold, the weight is really even, and your footage is going to be a lot more smoother. So that's why I use this rig, because it is really well balanced. Now, along with a heavier rig, the more points of contact you can have with your setup, the smoother your shots are going to be. So let me just show you a few of the ways that I hold and use this rig. I find more often than not, I have my right hand on the side handle, the back of the camera rig placed up against my chest, and my left hand underneath holding the rails. And the reason I love shooting like this is because it's nice and close against my chest, and so it's really stable, but I can still access the zoom and focus rings. Now, if I'm going for a low angle shot, I'll just hold it by the top handle and have my left hand around the camera lens. This way, again, I can access the zoom and the focus rings. If I'm shooting someone a little bit taller than me, typically I'll just sit the rails on my shoulder, and again, left hand on that focus ring and holding the rails at the same time, just to keep it nice and steady. However, if I am shooting someone or something that is quite a lot taller than me, I will try and just elevate myself, because the camera rig is going to be a bit more shaky sitting on top of my shoulders compared to if I have it nice and snug up against my chest like this. Another reason is because on your camera, there's essentially only one mounting point, so I can only use a mic or a monitor. I can't use both at the same time, so using a cage and rigging it out allows me to use more accessories. If you're using a V-mount battery like I am, you're able to power your camera and any accessories that you might be using, which comes in super handy on full day shoots. Now, each component of this rig has been selected for a specific reason. So the monitor, the top handle, the side handle, and the camera body are all on quick release plates, meaning I can quickly tear this build down when needed. The side handle that I've chosen fits nice and snug with this rig, which I really like. There are some side handles that sit a little bit extended out from the camera body, and I just find that to be really uncomfortable when I'm shooting. Another thing with this handle is it has a really nice groove to it, so it just fits really nice in your hand, and it's super comfortable on long shoot days. The monitor mount that I'm using is a swivel and tilt mount, meaning I can move it forwards and backwards and then tilt it left to right as well when needed. Just something to keep in mind though is that over time it does become a little loose, so picking up a small rig multi-tool and keeping that in your bag at all times is going to come in super handy, so you can tighten those screws up on shoot days. The monitor that I love using is the Atomos Ninja 5. It can be seen as a bit of a pricey monitor, but personally I would prefer to invest my money in good quality equipment that just lasts me for a very long time. I've had this monitor for maybe about 3 years now, never had an issue with it. And that's one of the reasons why I like investing in good quality stuff. I'm not gonna blab on about what's so good about this monitor and the pros and cons compared to other monitors, just purely because that's not what this video is about. If you're interested in finding out more information about the Ninja V, just check out another YouTube video on that. Now, I don't record externally to the Ninja, but I do have an SSD plugged in so I can view the LUT whilst I'm monitoring my camera feed. Now, because this SSD sticks out quite a little bit, I have actually mounted my monitor upside down. Now, it'll make more sense when I show you why, but it's essentially because if I have it mounted normally, then the shotgun mic will hit the SSD when it's in its position. So I just flip it the other way and then it's completely out of the way. I use the FX Line Nano 2 as my VMAT battery of choice for this rig. Now I run a USB-C cable to my camera to keep that charged throughout the shoot, and then I run a D-Tap dummy battery to my monitor. Now the reason I don't use a dummy battery to my camera is because there is a slight chance that I might knock the D-Tap and the camera dies mid-take, and there is absolutely nothing worse than that happening and having to explain to the client, oh, my camera just shut off, I have to do that whole take again. Like, that's not okay, that's not cool, especially not on client shoots. Like, I'm just not even gonna put myself in a position where I could have something like that happen. So I just have a battery in my camera and I'm just running USB-C cable to my camera. I also mount the battery and the battery plate onto the camera rig backwards. Now the reason being is because there is a little quick release plate on the cheese plate on the back, and if I have it mounted normally, I can't have my monitor sit flush, which is something that I really like. I like to be able to have my monitor sitting flush like this, but also have the option to twist it out and view it if needed. But most times I'm just viewing my actual Ninja V monitor, so I don't need my screen out, and I just like to have it sitting flush. It's a little bit tricky to get in, but you gotta work the right angle in it and it works. There are 3 different microphones that I use with this rig, and depending on what I'm shooting, obviously depends on which option I go for. More often than not, I actually find that I don't use a microphone at all. So most times when I'm shooting, this is the exact rig that I'm using. However, if I need to use a lav mic, I simply just chuck that onto the cold shoe mount on the back of the handle, plug it directly into the camera. That's option 1. Option 2 is if I want to use a shotgun mic, I mount a side handle to the left side of the camera and then put my shotgun mic onto the top of the handle and plug it into my camera like so. Now option 3 is if I want to be using my NTG5, which is an XLR microphone. Now this camera doesn't have any XLR inputs, and so I have to also mount the Zoom F3 towards the front right side of the camera attached to the rails. Now the reason I put it in this position is because it doesn't affect how I hold my camera. I'm still able to use the right side handle, I'm still able to use the top handle, and I'm still able to zoom or pull focus on the left side of the camera. So having the F3 tucked away in this little position next to the matte box is just perfect for me. Another bonus with this audio setup is I can record 2 audio sources at once. So I can be using the shotgun setup straight to the F3, and then I can also use a lav mic plugged directly into the camera. Now the matte box that I'm using is the Tilta Mirage. And what I love about this matte box compared to others that I've used before is that it actually mounts directly to the camera lens. And I personally love using zoom lenses, and so having this feature allows me to actually be able to use the full capabilities of a zoom lens and not be fixed just to one focal length. Another thing that I really like about this matte box is that it has a variable ND slot at the back of the matte box, so you can actually adjust this without having to ruin your shot. Some matte boxes allow you to actually screw on a variable ND on the inside of the matte box, but actually trying to reach around and adjust that filter is really hard, especially when you're mid-shot. So having that little dial on the back of the matte box is easy to access, and it's just a big game changer. Now, just a little side note that I want to point out is when you are mounting your camera to a base plate, for example, in my one, I'm using a quick release, but if you're mounting it to a tripod plate or whatever you're mounting it to, you want to have 2 points of contact. So you want to have 2 screws mounted into your cage, because if you don't, your camera rig will actually tilt on whatever it's mounted on. So if you've only got it mounted onto 1 screw in the base plate's going to shift no matter what it is, because your rig is so heavy and you're grabbing it from all different angles and moving it, and it will just move heaps. So just make sure you use 2 screws at all times so you don't have that issue. All right, enough talking, let's get into the rig build now. Like I said at the start of the video, this camera rig build is the perfect setup for me. I know other people like using shoulder rigs or other accessories, but this rig just works for me and my shooting style. Even if you don't use this exact rig, I hope you guys can take some inspiration from it and come up with the perfect rig for your shooting style. But if you guys do happen to build a rig like this, be sure to chuck a post on Instagram and tag me because I'd love to see it. All right guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I'll catch you in the next one.